welcome back. For this episode, I have Evan Polin, who is the president of Polin Performance Group LLC, with over 25 years of experience in sales coaching and consulting. Evan specializes in helping businesses and professional service firms enhance their sales, profits, and productivity through tailored sales coaching and consulting. Co-author of Selling Professional Services, The Sandler Way, Evan integrates his counseling background with proven sales strategies to deliver exceptional results. Welcome, Evan.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate you having me on today.
I'm really excited you're able to join all of us today. Could you share a little bit more about what you do and how you serve?
Sure. So what I really do is help provide folks with guidance. Sometimes it's accountability. Sometimes it's new tactics, new techniques, or a mindset to help them be as productive as possible when it comes to sales and business development. Most of the folks I help never in their worst nightmare thought they'd have to worry about sales, but they're small to mid-sized business owners who had a great product, had a great service, now need to get in front of new opportunities, attorneys, accountants, consultants who went as far as they could with their expertise, have now found if they want to start their own firm, if they want to make partner, they need to go out and develop a book of business. And they've just never been given the tools before on how to do it. And for most of us, it doesn't come naturally.
Right. And I think that part of that challenge is that everybody that you just mentioned is an expert in the thing that they're an expert in, but now it's to sell people on that thing you're an expert in and to understand how to have that conversation so that it's not a salesy sales call is definitely a skill that needs to be developed. How did you get started with this?
I jokingly tell people that I was born into it. So when I started college, my parents bought a sales training franchise. I'm old enough where they got cassette tapes to start to learn the sales process, sales system. So they would throw the cassette tape in when we went on vacation, anytime we were in the car. One year I was in college, I had a sales job in a lot of different areas of the country. There were these things called entertainment books, which were coupon books that were sold by churches, synagogues. So I would call the churches and the synagogues and the baseball teams to see if they wanted to sell it as a fundraiser. So I sat through the sales training. I did it again one summer when I was in graduate school. And my background is in counseling and mental health. I was working for a large managed care company, had a small counseling practice, wasn't happy with what I was doing. In my full-time job, I had been promoted twice in my first 3 years. Next promotion was like the director's job, which was like 10 years away. And I was feeling frustrated, not really making a lot of money. So I joined my parents in the business with the very non-traditional social work and mental health background, getting into a sales training and sales coaching role.
You just gave me a flashback with those entertainment books because we would get them all the time. Use 2 coupons out of this.
Yeah.
In your business, as we all experience as we're starting a business or managing our business, we all face challenges. What's a challenge or a struggle that you faced in your business and how did you overcome it?
So for me, the challenge was really 2 things. One, at the beginning, it's okay, I'm taking on this new endeavor. How do I even get started? Where do I go? I'm starting from zero. How do I get up and running? How do I get started? What am I doing day to day to build my business? Especially now that cold calling and some of those more traditional things aren't as prevalent.
Mm.
And then as my business got up and running, I'm in a heavy service business. It was, okay, how do I manage servicing my clients with still trying to grow my business? And a lot of consultants have this issue. How do I make sure I keep my pipeline full enough so if I finish 1 or 2 large projects, I don't go from really busy to, oh my God, where's my next client coming from? And how do I maintain and manage that balance between the two?
How did you manage that balance?
What I ultimately decided to do was essentially come up with a spreadsheet. And in the spreadsheet, plug in my clients, plug in the anticipated amount of time I was taking, plugged in about how many hours a week I wanted to be proactively training and coaching to give me how many hours I had to fill, and just making sure that I continue to go back to that. So I'm not overselling my services so that I can't service my clients. And also keeping in mind, okay, is that starting to drop, or as I'm seeing that one or two clients are coming up to the end of their contract? Okay, let's ramp up some of the business development activity before those things actually cycle off so that I've got a couple of new opportunities ready to go. And I don't have a 30, 60, 90-day valley where I'm not bringing in the revenue because, and consultants fall into this trap all the time. I was just so busy servicing my clients, but the mortgage company doesn't want to hear that when you don't have income coming in
Right.
when you're in those valleys. So it's really paying close attention, making sure that no matter what, I carve out time each week for prospecting and business development, for making touch points with folks so that I never run into one of those valleys.
It's really about being really intentional about that. I think that, I hope that's a lesson people are walking away with, is this idea of not hoping you're going to get this influx of new clients, but being very intentional about, this is the time each week I'm devoting to doing that prospecting.
It's funny that you say that. One of the things I jokingly share with people when I start working with them is that hoping and praying are not sales strategies. So that we actually have to have a plan. And the other thing I do that I have found really helpful, if you're a visual person, is I color code my calendar. So client service is one color. Prospect meetings, when I'm talking to people about new business, is a different color. My networking meetings are another color. My personal things are another. So I can look at my calendar for any upcoming week and see how much of each activity I have and make it very simple to be able to do.
Oh, that's great. Good tip. That's a good tip. So you talked about blocking out time for prospecting. What are some of the strategies you use for that in terms of how you prospect and collect leads, and then how do you convert those leads into clients and successfully serve those clients?
Sure. And as I share some of what I do, keep in mind that I am a sales professional and not a marketing professional. So more of my ideas are going to be more sales related in that one-on-one outreach and touch than it is using messaging and emails and those kinds of things. So for me personally, there's a couple of things that I do. One, every single prospect that comes into my pipeline, every single client, I go back and identify how that came in. So if it's coming in from networking, what networking was I doing? If I had a couple of different email campaigns, what campaigns did the leads come from? So that I can try to do more of what's working and not reinvent the wheel every time. The other thing I like to do is I like to very proactively leverage my contacts. So something that I did when I started my business is I went into LinkedIn. A lot of people don't know you can download your LinkedIn connections into an Excel spreadsheet. I did that. I kind of graded my contacts in A, B, C, and F to see who were my A's, who were my B's. And I set goals for myself in terms of how many people in my network I wanted to reach out to each week. Not necessarily to ask those folks for business, but to ask for referrals and introductions. And my goal was for every person I talked to get introduced to 1 to 2 people I didn't know. And quite frankly, in 3 months, that led from me not having any business to being at about 60 to 70% of capacity, just through leveraging my network and leveraging my relationships. So for me personally, I'm starting with that. And then I'm continuing to leverage my relationships. I'm asking people, what professional associations do you belong to? Where do you network? Do you think that someone like me might have success, going to some of the and then if I can go to places, then people will introduce me as somebody that they already know, which gives me a little bit of a head start. So that's how I like to do a lot of my prospecting, is through leveraging my contacts and relationships to get introduced to the right kinds of folks.
That's really great advice. I also just want to caution people. I love what you're recommending about LinkedIn. That is not an open invitation to messenger bomb and people people on
Correct.
LinkedIn.
I think we've all been on the receiving end of those.
Yes, not the best use of technology.
Let me just jump in one other thing for people who want to use this advice. You actually have to have a conversation with someone. I am not sending somebody a 2-page email. My first step is just reaching out to you and saying, hey, it's been a little while since we've talked. Would love to jump on a 20-minute call and catch up. I am asking the other person about themselves first, and I am truly interested in them. And if there's any way that I can help them, then I'm sharing with people what I'm doing, asking if there's ways that they could help me, if they've got advice for me, sharing with them a little bit in terms of who I'm looking to meet. I'm doing the homework for them to make it easy for them to make introductions. So I'm not bombing people's LinkedIn's. I'm not sending these 2-page emails asking for all of these introductions. I find that if we're having a one-on-one conversation, if I'm showing interest in you, there's a much better chance that we're going to be able to come up with some kind of win-win than doing some of those other things that you mentioned.
And do you recommend people have a one sheet that highlights their skills and who they're looking for and that type of information? Is that beneficial?
Here's what I would say about the one cheater. It can't hurt. And I probably have 50 people's one cheaters saved in a file somewhere. But the chances that people are going to go back to that and study that every day aren't very good. So you can do that and give people an idea. What I do, and it takes a little bit more work, but I found that it really helps to actually come away with referrals and introductions. I will go through somebody's LinkedIn connections before I have that conversation. So I subscribe to Sales Navigator just because I can do it in 10% of the time. But if you and I are having a one-on-one, chances are your LinkedIn network is open so I can see who you're connected to. I keep my LinkedIn network open so people see who I'm connected to. I will go through your list of connections. I will come up with a list of people who you are connected to that I think could potentially be good prospects for me, good strategic partners for me. And then when you and I are meeting, I will ask your permission. I'll say, hey, spend a little bit of time on your LinkedIn. Saw that there were some people you were connected to that might be good for me to meet. I know most people only know like 20% of the people they're connected to in their LinkedIn well enough where they'd ever be able to make an introduction. Would you mind if I asked you about a couple specific people and you can tell me whether or not you know them and if you think that they may be beneficial for me to talk to? So takes 15 to 20 minutes of your time. But when I do that with my A and B connections, I'm always walking away with getting 2 or 3 introductions because somebody just forgot that they knew someone, didn't realize that someone moved to a different company, didn't put 2 and 2 together because unfortunately they're not spending enough of their time thinking about how they could help me in my business. For some reason, they're selfish and they're really busy with their own business and their own family.
Dare they?
Exactly. So I will make it as easy as possible for them to be able to make that introduction for me. And I will make it easy for them to tell me that they're not comfortable or it doesn't make sense. So I'm not trying to force it, but I don't want to ruin a current relationship for being really pushy in the hopes of getting a referral or an introduction. So I'll ask for their permission, ask if they're comfortable, and sometimes they'll go, you know what, Evan, that person wouldn't be good. But if you're asking me about that person, this person is their boss or this person's at a similar company, that person might. And again, it's starting those conversations versus me sending a one pager that somebody might spend 30 seconds looking at and then save it in a file somewhere and not look at it again until they talk to me next.
Right. That makes sense. That whole process of having that conversation with someone and asking either for the introduction or insights or who do they know does, as you said, need to start off with learning about that person you're reaching out to. What are their needs? How can you help them so that it's not a one-sided, what can you do for me kind of conversation? Because who wants that?
Right. That's the person that everybody walked away from at a networking event, that person who takes and takes and takes and takes and is never willing to give back. I find the better that somebody is a connector for other people, the more that people want to help that person. And I'm truly looking at it as a win-win. And when I'm able to help folks, I'm truly trying to help make those connections for them as well,
Mhm.
so that they see that value in having a relationship with me.
It is just part of building relationships is making sure that it's two-way. It is also good business, but it's also being a good human. It's a win-win-win all the way around to make sure that you're thinking about others and their needs as well.
Right. Because if you're really selfish, people are going to pay attention to that and be a lot less willing to help.
Yeah,
If it's just, what can you do for me? And not looking at how we make it a win-win.
exactly. In that whole process, are you using automation at any stage of that?
You know, if you could introduce me to somebody who's really good at automation, I am sure that I am not automating as much as I should be. So the automation that my clients will typically use that works well for them is if they're using a HubSpot, if they're using a Salesforce, is automating follow-up and doing automated messaging that way. I have also, when it comes to automation, I've used some different programs in the past. Poopler is one that comes to mind, that if you're doing social media posts, that you can post things out for 3, 4, 6 weeks at a time. So that with those kinds of things, you can set it and forget it. And for me personally, I'd rather spend an hour on a Friday planning out my next 4 weeks worth of posts than twice a week scrambling for, okay, what am I going to do? What am I going to post?
Right.
So those are some different things that I'll use for automation. But I am one who needs to get better at automation. And the same thing with AI. I will start, I'm utilizing tools like a chat, some other tools to help with research. You don't need to do all of the research yourself anymore to come up with a list of the top 20 prospects in a certain kind of industry. Yeah, you can
Exactly.
use automation to help you with a lot of those kinds of things, to make it a little bit easier and give you a little bit more of a head start. Same thing with your messaging, those kinds of things. Just don't put anything proprietary out there, because then, unless you've built in protections for yourself, it's open to your competitors and everybody else in the world
Right.
to use those things.
Right. And with the AI, I think people shy away from it because when they think AI in terms of networking, they think in terms of those annoying messages that we
Hmm.
get that are clearly not written by a human. But just as you said, you can use AI to do that background research for you to help you identify who those top prospects are, just like you said, to perhaps even see who else in the same industry, in the same organization you might want to reach out to. So it can do that research for you. And then you still make that human connection on the front end. Same with the follow up. So you mentioned HubSpot, and there's a lot of other automation tools out there that can help with automated follow up of emails and text messaging, which, again, not everybody loves that. They feel like it's not very personal. And so that part is a conversation for another day. But the part that I wanted to share is, in the same way, just showing my age, in the same way, back when we had tickler files that were 3x5 index cards in your little
I
file box.
remember those.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You can do the same thing through automation, where it's like, okay, I spoke to this person today, and you can use the automation to basically set a timer so that that pops up the next time you need to reach out to that person. So it's, for example, automatically generating who you should be reaching out to every single day so people don't fall through the cracks. So
Right.
that's another way you could potentially use automation as part of that sales outreach process.
And part of the automation of the AI, I am completely reliant on like a Zoom to be able, and a Fathom to
Yeah.
be able to record my conversations, so that rather than having to remember everything, if again you're using some kind of CRM and you can plop, an overview of your call
Mhm.
or a link from your call. Now, if you've got a lot of profit, you can go look at the notes, see what the last conversation was about, put a task in as that reminder for you to reach out in 30, 60 days, go back, be able to look at the notes, be very specific. So again, it doesn't come across as a bot generated, as a very, very general kind of message.
Right.
That is just way easier to do if you have those tools and you're using them in the right way.
Yes,
And having an expert to guide you through what that process should look like.
exactly. Now, you already gave us a bunch of good tips already, but do you have some specific tips that you could share with us?
Sure. So a specific tip, and if anybody would like this tool, you'll make sure that you've got a way to contact me. One of the things I like to do is utilize what I like to call a sales cookbook. So I start with the end in mind and work backwards. So I start with, okay, how much revenue do I want to do in the year, in Q4, whatever it might be? Then I think about what's my average engagement. I do the math to figure out how many new clients, how many engagements I need. Then we can further work backwards. We're not closing every single one that we send a proposal out to or that we send an engagement letter out to. So what's your closing percentage like? So if I need 10 new clients and I close 50% of the proposals I send out, I need to send out 20 proposals. Well, guess what? Not every first meeting that you have with a prospect is going to be somebody qualified enough who's going to get a proposal. So if 1 out of 3 of my first meetings turn into people that get a proposal and I need 20 proposals, okay, well, now I need 60 first meetings. And then not everybody I have a conversation with either over LinkedIn, over Zoom, at a networking event is going to be somebody who's a qualified prospect. So is it 1 out of 3 conversations I have one so that I know, okay, now I know I need 120 conversations over the next 3 months. Now I can build a plan for how I'm going to have those conversations. I can know that I need to talk to 4 people a day and develop that plan. So I've got a Excel document that's customizable that you can go in and put in all of your numbers so that you can identify for yourself. And I'll even break it down for if you provide a lot of different services. What's a large client worth? What's a mid-sized client worth? What's a small client worth? What do you want your client makeup to look like? So that again, we may be able to identify out of those 10 clients I need 2 large clients, I need 3 mid-sized clients, and I need 5 small clients. And I can even track that granularly as I'm going through if I know my numbers. If I don't know my numbers, we're going back to that wishing and hoping and praying as a sales strategy,
Right.
which doesn't work out nearly as frequently as we would like it to.
And it does just come down to numbers. And I think when you view it like that, when you can internalize the fact that it's just a numbers game, that takes the emotion and the fear out of it, because it's like, okay, I know that I'm likely going to close. History shows me I'm likely going to close 10% of the calls that I make. I know I need to close this many calls. So that means I need to have this many calls, knowing the majority of them are probably going to be no's statistically.
Right.
That's all right, because I have to get through the no's to get to the yeses.
Exactly. And what I'll have some people do to help them out psychologically is rather than if they're feeling upset at all of the no's, hey, divide it out. So let's just use simple math. A sale is worth $100. I close 1 out of 10. Every time I get a no, that's worth about $10 because I know that out of the next 10, 1 is going to be a yes. So that will help people with what they need to do when getting through the rejection. And I'll talk with folks about the psychology of selling and the fact that we can't take that rejection personally and why we take it personally and how we need to overcome those kinds of things. But all of that goes into it.
So knowing your numbers is an important first step. What else would you want to share?
So a couple things. 1, knowing your numbers. 2, knowing what has been successful for you in the past so that you can go back and see how you can do more of those things that were working and you can cut out those things that weren't working. And 3, I think really having the mindset, I'm not a salesperson trying to sell somebody something, but I am a problem solver. I am an advisor. I want people who are listening to this to use their expertise to ask really good questions of their prospects to identify whether or not their prospects have problems they can solve. If they do, great, let's continue the conversation and show them how what we do may be able to help them. If we can't solve the problem that they have, or they're not willing to invest any money in it, let's disqualify them as quickly as possible. There's very few people that I know that get paid by the proposal, that get paid by the meeting. We're typically getting paid when somebody becomes a client. So if we can qualify or disqualify somebody as quickly as possible, and some people will take me literally and they'll think disqualify means they can never talk to the person ever again. No, that's not the case, but I may wait another 6 months before reaching out to see if circumstances have changed or if decision makers have changed. But I'm not going to continue calling them every other week if there's just not a fit or they just don't see the value right.
Exactly. That mindset shift is so crucial. It's just like you were saying, another reason that people are uncomfortable with how they're interpreting the sales process is that they feel like I'm going to force you to buy this phone. That they feel like that is the goal, rather than recognizing this person is like, oh my gosh, I need to be able to keep in touch with my family, even though I got to leave the house. And it's like, oh my gosh, you mean this device would allow me to keep in touch with my family, even though I'm outside the house? And that's what you're doing, is you're recognizing this person has a problem that I can solve, just like you said. And to not share is the selfish piece, because you actually have something that could relieve their burden, that could bring a smile to their face. And so by not picking up the phone, by not scheduling that call, by not reaching out through LinkedIn, you're actually keeping them in that pain
Correct.
mindset. Yes.
Correct. The mindset should be, my job is to go out there and find people who I can help. If they don't need my help, that's fine. It's not a reflection of me personally. I'm not taking that personally. It's just next. A saying I like to use with my clients: some will, some won't, so what, next.
Love it.
And it's not personal. I've never heard somebody say, Evan, I don't like you. I don't think you're good at what you do. That's why I'm not working with you. Yeah, they may have more sales than they can handle and they really need more people to service. They may have a 15-year relationship with another sales coach. They may not have the budget to work with me. Guess what? None of those things are a reflection on me. So why would I take any of that personally?
Exactly. So here at the Automated Coach podcast, our listeners are action takers. What is one action that you would encourage our listeners to take?
The very first step I would encourage all of you listening to this podcast to take is to go and do that cookbook. Know your numbers, because if you don't know what your goal is, if you don't know how many new clients you need to achieve that goal, it's going to be really, really tough to put together a plan if you have no idea where that plan is targeted towards. So that would be the very first step that I would suggest. And if we've got time for a second, if you've been doing what you're doing for a while, look at who you have relationship with. Current clients, previous clients, people that you've worked with, people that you've networked with, and leverage your relationships. That is the fastest way to get introduced to good new opportunities.
Thank you so much, Evan. I know there are listeners that are also going to want to keep in touch with you and follow you online. Where can they find you?
Great. I really appreciate the opportunity for a shameless plug. A couple of things. I have a podcast myself. Actually, we're having some distinguished guests coming on soon, yourself included. It is the Sales Marketing Playbook Unleashed. It is myself and a marketing professional. We talk about the importance of those two coming together. So you can find us on our YouTube page if you look up Sales and Marketing Playbook Unleashed, and that's an ampersand sign. If you connect with me on LinkedIn, you will see posts linked every single week. You can also find it on Apple, Spotify, wherever you find your podcasts. You can go to my website. My website is my last name, Polin, Polin, PG, which stands for performancegroup.com. You can reach me there. Got information, got my email address there. My email is just evan@polinpg.com. Again, if you want that cookbook, happy to send it out. Happy to answer any questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Evan. And listeners, of course, we'll put the link to Evan's podcast in the show notes, so please do check that out. This has been, as we used to say, a joy and a treat. Thank you so much for coming on the Automated Coach podcast. really, really enjoyed having you here today.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed myself. Great conversation. And for those of you out there not automating, do it so that you can stop working hard and you can start working smart.
Thank you so much.